Coogs House. From bayou to bayou, Willie Fritz is coming in hot with the class of 2025.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who can't stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you want to join in the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us. We're going to go back to an oldie. What your favorite hot sauce is, because I'm a Louisiana hot sauce guy. I really like the one drop kind of stuff. It's great even if you use a lot more than one drop. Louisiana comes up today in the episode. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. More on that in a second. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about regarding Houston's class of 2025 recruits under head coach Willie Fritz. They had a bunch of guys on campus. One guy I'm really, really hopeful for, and a couple of guys that committed, one on the bigger side, one on the faster side. So without further ado, we're going to jump in and start talking about the great weekend that the Cougs had in recruiting the class of 2025. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that there'd be references to Louisiana here, because we're going to start with a kid named Zen Cormier. Cormier is a 5'11", 180-pound athlete that committed to Houston on Sunday. He is a listed athlete in his own bios and mentions and videos and so on. I see him listed as a safety on a lot of different recruiting outlets when looking up information on the guy. But honestly, his high school stuff has a lot of great receiver tape. And so I think that that's why he says athlete, is that it sounds like his offer from Houston can be on either side of the ball. They're going to figure that more as the class comes together, I'm sure. And he is from Houston Heights High School. I probably should have mentioned that. And Houston Heights High School with a Louisiana-made identifier in his social medias across all boards. Again, with a name like Cormier, I'm assuming he is a Louisiana guy somewhere in the bloodline there. He had other Power 5 offers like Mississippi State, Arizona State, but ultimately chose Houston at the conclusion of a gigantic recruiting weekend that had over 15 football recruits on campus. Looks like, from what I can tell, they're all class of 2025 kids like Zalen, and Zalen commits to Houston. Now, Zalen himself, like I said, is 5'11", 180 pounds, and can play on either side of the ball, on both sides. He obviously has great speed, great speed to be able to do that. He competes for the ball what's in the air, as would be valuable for both a wide receiver and for a safety, obviously. And then big, strong, very physical kid. Again, 180 pounds, almost looks light when you watch him play football. And so I have to say that I'm not sure. Watching his high school highlights, I think receiver. Looking at his physicality, I think defense. I could see this going either way. If he were to come in and play receiver, again, looking at his high school highlights, he's really good at tracking the ball in the air, both when the ball is high and low, like down around the shoelaces and up above his helmet. He gets up and low. He gets up and down, or goes high and low. I combine those. He does both things very well when looking for the football. I thought he did a really good job in his high school tapes. This is all through his Huddle account, I should say. But he has a really good job of finding open spaces in zone, the soft spaces in zones. I don't think Houston high school staffs are going to zone him a whole lot without someone ID'd on him as a man guy. I don't know a lot about what Houston Heights is coming back next season, but I would imagine you got to stick to him a little tighter than just zone coverage, because he finds and sits down in windows really, really well. Again, that strong, sturdy guy he is. A strong, sturdy base means he's harder to bring down. He runs through arm tackles at the high school level. No indication that wouldn't carry over to running through tackles or running through arm tackles at the collegiate level with a continued time in the weight room and stuff like that. Definitely has the mentality to do all of that. On the defense side of the ball, if you were to come in and play defense, he's obviously, as an offensive guy as well, a very good once he gets the ball, right? That's a skill in itself. I think we should point out that he does hunt the ball and does do very well once he gets it. And so obviously that's important. I think that I was impressed. So he drops his hips really well against like bigger running backs and stuff in the hole when he fills downhill as a safety, right? So that's this like classic technique. You're going in there, that guy's got a head of steam. He's usually a bigger athlete. You're going to drop down and take him out of his legs and kind of lift up as you do it. So if he tries to hurdle or whatever, right, you're taking him out of the play, right? That's the thing you teach. I thought he did a really good job of doing that on most plays, but then he clearly, when he sees someone he can, takes a lot of pleasure in like those moments for the big up top knockout blow. And I know that, Sports Center plays like that might not be the kind of thing that a purist wants, like, no, I just need the good tackles. But there are those kind of momentum things that he clearly sparks for his guys in high school as well. He, for the same physicality kind of reasons, appears to be very hard to block on the perimeter. Escapes a lot of receiver blocks at the high school level. Obviously, it's going to take some time to get stronger at college before he can do that at the college level, but I don't see why he couldn't do that at the college level. And then the thing stuck out to me is that he never quits on any of those big breakaway kind of stuff. A couple different clips in his highlights, and then I guess the most exaggerated versions are like when he's on the opposite side of the field and you see a long play go down the left sideline, he's on the right side. He is always chasing it down. A couple different times he has what we'd call a touchdown saver type of tackle, meaning he is like the last line of defense coming from the backside, and his angle he's taking is just like to keep the guy from the end zone to give you another down. He has several tackles like that in the course of his junior season. And really, again, I think could play either side of the ball. He has more stuff on his film from the offensive side. I think part of that is that if you're a really good safety, if you're really good in coverage, they don't throw your guy the ball a lot, right? Like you're theoretically limiting your own plays by just covering a guy well. It's hard to account for things like what your assignments were and stuff like that in the highlights, no matter how many packages you put out or how long the packages are. I do think, though, that he feels like a strong slot receiver. When you think about the kinds of things that Tulane did with Willie Fritz, he values that. You think about the kind of things that Barbay did at Mississippi State, Appalachian State, right? He values that. I think the stronger... I don't want to say Wes Welker because he's the only slot that everyone thinks about that's under 6 feet tall, but running back build and the lower half of the body, those kinds of slot receivers I think are really important to what Houston's going to do in the next 5 years. And so I could see him coming and doing a lot of those kinds of things with the football being a tough, hard-nosed slot. It's going to be important. Just another guy that the Willie Fritz staff is bringing in that can truthfully impact Houston and the Cougars on either side of the football. And I think that's interesting, especially as we continue to go through the list of guys here that committed over the weekend and looking at another athlete in a second, but Houston's clearly valuing it. Quarterback, receiver, lineman, guys that are versatile, guys that can play either side of the ball. And that's how they're putting together their championship roster. We hope to build a Big 12 title contending type of roster with as early as this class of 2025, if not earlier. And if you're trying to build a title winning roster, you're trying to put together a championship caliber team, we know that you're trying to hire for your small business in the same kind of way, and that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. That's why I check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you find and hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively looking for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in 24 hours. Hire professionals like professional on LinkedIn. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so I mentioned versatility. I mentioned athlete. I mentioned the fact that Houston is looking at just good athletic football players and take whatever position you think you play. We're going to figure it out when you get here. And they're doing that across the board. And that is really what sticks out to me about the next kid I'm about to talk about, because truthfully, he sticks out on film as a guy that makes a lot of plays. Period. Full stop. The next guy I'm about to talk about makes a lot of plays. I just don't know what he's gonna play. He's big enough to play Division I college football. He's big enough to play at the University of Houston. He's big enough to play in the Big 12. I just don't know what position he is. His name is Chance Bryant. Chance comes from Full Shear. He's a 3-star D lineman. He's 6'3", 245. He plays some nose tackle, plays some 3 technique, plays some edge rusher, plays some fullback, plays some slot H-back tight end type guy, or just slightly removed line of scrimmage. He does a lot of different things in high school. And at the end of the day, it just feels like, first of all, anytime a guy can put together a junior season highlight tape that is legitimately full of highlights, not just B-roll, and it's like over 10 minutes long, that's a lot of plays, right? The dude makes a lot of plays. I don't know what position he plays. At 245, he's going to grow. I don't know what he's going to grow into. I don't know if he's going to grow to like 315 and be a defensive tackle. I don't know if he's going to go to 265 and be an edge rusher. I don't know if he's going to go to a more lean 245 and be a linebacker. I don't know what he's going to play. He's a big, strong athlete and I don't mean like he needs to reshape his body like he's not in shape. He's in great shape. He's playing 2 ways. And frankly, I'd point out that it looks like very clearly on his high school roster when you watch him play 2 ways. A lot of his teammates aren't. A lot of the other numbers change on offense and defense, but 44 does not. Now, I mentioned he plays end, nose tackle, 3 tech, some 4-eye, a little bit of fullback, a little bit of tight end / H-back. Sometimes he removes the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of different things. I think what he does best is rush the passer in football. I say that because he seems to do that very well. He seems to cause chaos and havoc in the backfield very, very well. I think he projects to be a defensive player. I just am not sure exactly which front 7 position yet. I am also, I should point out, projecting that maybe he could be a linebacker type coverage guy because he has the fluidity to play out in space on offense. And I may be, okay, I probably am rolling that too far, right? And so in doing that, I feel like he could be a bunch of different things, regardless of what he plays at. He plays at an incredible tempo with incredible tenacity and is very, very aggressive. I mean, he is going after the football, making plays on the football, punching at the football, stripping the football, ripping the football away. I mean, he is going after the ball in a way that, frankly, it makes offensive players worry more about the ball than fighting through a tackle. Sometimes, I mean, he's pretty talented. And I think he plays with pretty good angles, but not a great pad level. And so what I mean by that is that he finds the angles that get him around offensive linemen or help him evade blocks or dodge the second guy as they're sending a fullback to chip or whatever, or running back to chip or whatever, right? He understands the geometry of football in the 2-dimensional sense like that. But someone in it, it's probably Houston. Someone's got to get his pads down, right? If he's going to be a defensive lineman at the Division I level, he's probably going to have to be at about another 6 inches, 12 inches closer to the ground. And I think that's the kind of thing. I mean, when we see linemen come in, right? We see linemen come in and redshirt, play sparingly, like develop over time. These are guys that get multiple degrees because they're just at school for a lot longer. he's going to be one of those types of guys because he is the kind of mentality, the kind of tenacity that you want in your football team, but he's got some raw stuff to work with still, right? This way he's a 3-star, not a 4-star. Like, he makes the plays of someone with a lot higher recruit ranking than he does, and frankly, plays the game with an intensity of a guy with a lot higher recruit ranking than he does. He just needs more technical work. And I think Houston's a great place for him to come do it, right? I mean, there's going to be no rush. We're building a program here under Fritz, right? And I think that that's a good fit for him in that sense. But also, I think that just like having that kind of a culture guy where he's like, I'm going to go make plays. Like those kinds of guys that you want on the field. I will say that for a guy that plays as high as I think he does, those angles help a lot. He plays like, and this typically a guy that plays that high off the ground as a defensive lineman has trouble with zone plays because they just get taken for a ride by offensive linemen because they're up and too high and get driven around, right? He plays really well side to side in zone because, again, those angles he plays with are so well. He plays with those so well. He like doesn't seem to get beat on things like screens because he's finding the football at all times, has a great nose where the football is. Really, really impressive stuff out of him in high school. I mentioned the pad level and why that, may mean maybe he is an H-back, right? We know that Barbe wants to use some more of that, and maybe I'm projecting it completely wrongly. Maybe he is the 6'3", 245 that gets to 6'3", 265 and is like a quasi tight end H-back. I don't know, right? I do think we're going to use those positions more, and so maybe that is what Chance plays. I do think, though, that at some level, the guys that cause chaos like this end up being defensive players, even if it means a lot of training and focus on certain aspects of his game. I think guys that just internally cause as much chaos have to be defensive guys. High motor, great instincts. Again, at the high school level, great football player. We're just need to fix a couple things, right? And so Willie Fritz, I think, trusts himself to do this kind of stuff, right? I mean, this kind of thing that at Tulane he had to coach these guys up, right? He had to get guys that, yes, they have this like thing that's gonna, they got to coach out of a kid or whatever. Yes, they have to work on the hitch and the giddy up or the whatever, right? But they understand, like, if we can fix this thing, we can make him a great football player. So Giles going to fix this thing. Coach Oscar Giles, defensive line coach, going to fix this thing about this kid and turn him into that elite football player, right? Those are the kinds of things that have to happen. Now, Chance and Zaylen were not the only two guys to visit Houston over the weekend. They did both commit. Houston had a lot of athletes in over the weekend. I want to talk about in my final segment one that really sparked my interest because I really, really just want to see him play football for the red and white. But first, it's not just football season. It's actually just recruiting season. It is also winner take all time NBA and NHL. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bets, $150 to bet on point spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Right now, the NBA Finals is going on. Recording after Game 2 finished. Boston's up 2-0 and is a 1.5 point dog to go up 3-0 with the series heading back to Dallas on Wednesday. I think Boston still does it. I do. I really do. More interesting, though, is the odds for Finals MVP are all over the place. You can find all kinds of fantastic odds. Like, does Luka Doncic win the Finals MVP in a losing effort? That's plus 650, folks. Plus 650 right now at FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Houston had 15 kids visit over the weekend. I'm counting and looking through names of guys here and then looking at pictures people posted and trying to count through who's who. We're between 15 and 20 guys visited Houston. Looks like on the class of 2025 this past weekend. Great weekend for the staff energy was fantastic. Tank Dell came back and spoke to guys. It looked like to me they were doing something at a Minute Maid Park, and all kinds of cool stuff happening, really showing off Houston, or at least this is me snooping Instagram, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But I think amongst them, we mentioned that Zaylen and Chance both committed over the weekend. You had Austin Carlisle, the quarterback we talked about, class 2025 from Ridgepoint High School. He was on campus. Travis Buhaki, he was the Arlington Mansfield Summit defensive end. He was on campus. Richmond Ugochukwu, I'm going to get that right, Richmond, I promise. The Richardson Berkner linebacker / athlete, also on campus. These guys are helping build the culture of the class they're helping establish, right? Carlisle being the quarterback in that class is helping set that up as well, right? Again, Carlisle's the dual threat athletic type guy, Elite 11 kind of caliber arm at 5'10", 5'11", maybe. Really great, talented athlete. We talked about that before with Brian Smith. We may have to talk to Brian Smith again the more these athletes keep committing, because we got to figure out what positions they play. A lot of people on campus, long way to say, a lot of people on campus over the weekend, right? And I don't mean this to diminish any of the others, but in looking through clips and watching guys film and trying to figure out who would be exciting, I found myself over and over and over again wanting to go back and watch more from a kid named Ja'Cory Watson. Now, Ja'Cory is probably the highest rated kid that was on campus for the weekend, too. He's a high-end 4-star from Shadow Creek High School in Pearland. He's listed as an athlete. I think he's very clearly a receiver, but I could see how he could be a corner or something just athletically. Really, really talented. And what I found myself doing is I just enjoyed watching him play football. And the reason I want to bring him up is because I really want to enjoy watching him play football for Houston, right? Like I just think that there's a lot of fun to be had there. Ja'Cory is 5'10", $175. He has a slew of Power 5 offers: Baylor, Boston College, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Arizona State, Colorado, Duke, Kansas, LSU, Michigan, Michigan State, Missouri, Texas, Texas Tech, Washington State. His top 5, which is more important, he has Houston listed as one of the 5, with Baylor, the Aggies, Boston College, and Ole Miss. Now, if I were a gambling man, I'd bet Ole Miss is there to kind of help with some NIL revenue, because, frankly, Ole Miss's NIL packages are very large, and so you could theoretically be like, okay, person at XYZ school, Ole Miss is saying that they can, have these kinds of packages for these kinds of does and whatever, right? That's, I think, theoretically the kind of thing that you'd keep Ole Miss on your list for. Otherwise, Ole Miss and Boston College kind of stick out as very different than Houston, Baylor, and A&M, right? Especially for a kid from Pearland, Texas. I should point out that there's a number of Shadow Creek connections being made between the current Houston Cougar roster and recruiting classes and Shadow Creek High School, and so something to put together there. Maybe, maybe Shadow Creek. Shadow Creek wears blue. Maybe they should start wearing like the Love You Blue Coug things that we wore. At some point, it's almost the same team, right? The thing I like watching about Ja'Cory, though, and I mentioned that I like watching him play football, and that's why I want to see him play for Houston. And he was here for the weekend, and it's like a real chance it could happen, right? And I should point out too that Mo, he had the safety that committed, the top end kid from last year. He is also from Shadow Creek High School, and on his Instagram, it was very clear that he was showing Ja'Cory a good time. Like, that was important, right? I think to have that connection being made. You can see a guy that you just played with going off and doing great things at Houston. But Ja'Cory's just fun because he has that elite game-changing twitch. I don't just mean 40 speed. I don't just mean jukes. I mean, like, he just has a different gear. It all just looks like the game is happening at a different speed. And when I'm trying to think of it. When those guys come around, you just have to sit and watch. And he's great in the return game for Shadow Creek, right? I mean, just elusive, and guys can't keep up. Fade routes. He makes a stutter step at the line of scrimmage, and he gets down his hip, and it's over. Right? The classic, and if you're playing quarterback with him, the classic if he's even, he's leaving kind of guy, right? I mean, gets even with the corner and then just put it out there because he's gone, right? While he's doing that kind of stuff, he put a lot of ice on the ball, put the ball way up in the air. He does a great job of blocking out, whether it's on a fade route or jump ball kind of situation. 5'10", 175, that is not a given. That is difficult to do, and he is doing it. He finds seams in the zones vertically very well. So if you think like, oh, we're just going to have like a man zone concept where if he finds those spaces and shields off the man defender really, really well. And the one thing I really like that Shadow Creek did with him that it's not antithetical to what Barbet does, but it would be something Barbet would probably wait till Jacory showed up to do. Is they put him in reverses and screen game situations that felt a lot, they play it out a lot like his kickoff and punt returns. And by that, I mean he got the ball moving in space with blockers in front of him, as opposed to just handing the ball as a running back where you have blockers in front of you, but you're in space. In space with blockers in front of him, he could set up the blocks in both the return game and the reverse screen game. He got guys in front of him and kind of set up blocks and like would take a false step, get the defensive guy on one side of the block, and then use the block to his advantage to evade it, all while going full speed. So when we talk about gears the guy's got, he's really, really good at shifting through all of that. Jacory is the highest ranked recruit on a lot of people's boards for a reason, and I have to think that that's important. And frankly, again, this is the selfish part. I enjoy watching him play, and so I want to see him come through Houston. Now, there's all kinds of other guys as well. Like I said, I think I counted over 15 guys from Katy, guys from Texas, guys from Louisiana. And regardless, I mean, Jacory's listed as an athlete too. It feels like a key focus for Fritz and company is that they're finding athletes, guys that can play ball, get them to campus, show them a good time, show them the culture, show them the direction this thing is going, and we'll figure out what position they play when we start playing ball, right? Like at the end of the day, that seems to be the MO of this staff, and I don't hate it. We'll see how this continues to play out. Frankly, we had 2 commits over the weekend. We'd have more play out in the coming days. Sounds like a lot of these guys had a really good time and are really interested in buying into what Houston's doing. We also had a fairly large, no pun intended, basketball recruit on campus this weekend. Hopefully the weekend went as well for him. More on that this week. Lots of things to break down in summertime here at Locked On Cougs. Make sure you subscribe to get the latest on the Houston Cougars each and every day. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.